Hi there, my name's Abner, and my Twitter handle there is probably not very useful to most of you. It's where I interact with our customers and partners. I have a Tumblr where I track marketing things, and so if you're a marketing person, that's probably the direction to go, assuming that this is fun for you. So what I want to talk about today is can we clone George Clooney in Ocean's 11? And we'll get more into that in a few minutes. So just to give you a little bit of view into Univer, who here uses the internet? Awesome. Keep using it, keep downloading lots and lots of things over your phones. The core of the internet largely runs on our gear and our software. And so if you know of Cisco, we eat their lunch, and we build out lots of different types of networking gear for both service providers, AT&T, Verizon, Vodafone, those types of people, as well as enterprises. And when it comes to the enterprises, it could be people like stock exchanges, governments, those sorts of people for whom information is absolutely critical to their business. They need very high reliability and very high performance. We have some pretty cool customers. People like Tesla run our stuff. And so we have people like Tesla, we have people like Grooveshark, we have stock exchanges and all those sorts of people for whom the network is absolutely critical to their business. About 2/3 of our business, we're about a $4.5 billion company, is to those service providers. And if you know the telecom space at all, you know that there are essentially 20 of them that matter. So there are 20 customers in the world that matter, that do $100 million plus deals, social media sites, search engines, those sorts of people. And we know them really well. We send them Christmas cards, and so we know those people. We have the tribal knowledge around talking to those people. Tribal knowledge is important. It's good to know who's who and what's what. In the spheres of very large-scale internet problems, there really aren't that many people that deal with large-scale networking problems. The balance that we have, though, is that other 1/3 of the business. The other third of the business represents 30 to 50,000 customers, depending on how you're counting them. And so the question for us as we expand and grow is how do we balance tribal knowledge with the data that we can gather around the customers? And so that balancing act of tribal knowledge versus being data-driven is really the challenge that Juniper has in the marketplace today. So I'd like to talk about a tale of two different kinds of reps. The first rep is my George Clooney guy. So if you've ever seen the movie Ocean's 11, you know that George Clooney planned very, very well. He knew exactly who his target was. He knew what the floor plan looked like. He knew all the people involved. He knew all the things that could go wrong. And when they did go wrong, he had another plan on how to do that. So my George Clooney is a guy named Matt. He runs our relationship with a very large company that you're all using products of today. And he knows more about that company than most people in that company. We do about $40 to $50 million a year with this company. And so he is that rock star. He has a team of people that they descend on that account, and they take care of it. And then I have my other guys. So these are my commercial reps. They have a territory where they say, okay, you have all the accounts in this territory, go. So they have 1,200 accounts. We've whittle it down and say, no, you should really focus on this 100 of your 1,200 and focus 50s and focus 100s and that sort of thing. But these guys generally spend most of their time running around, like Brian said, and they can waste a lot of time talking to the wrong people. We have very specific use cases that people either are going to pay for our gear or they're not. And so are there other things that we can know that, that will lead us to those right customers? So, here at Eloqua Experience, there's a lot of focus on human behaviors. And human behaviors are really important to track. There's lots of really interesting technologies to track them. And I would encourage you to continue looking at all the different human behaviors that you can track. When it comes to our business, the human behaviors are interesting, but they're also trailing indicators. So what's pretty interesting is that you also have organizational behaviors, and generally what drives a customer toward buying a network is some change in the organization. Nobody buys a network because they downloaded a white paper, right? Nobody buys a new network. You only buy a new network when something in your company changes or your old gear is so old that it's threatening the livelihood of your own business. It's really important as you go, or I found it anyway, really important as you go through your own organizations to split the way that you look at the data in this human behavior versus organizational behavior. Because there are a zillion different data sources for all of these. There are 50 different vendors on the show floor down here who are going to sell you something to optimize some bit of this. And you have to have your own house in order, or at least semi-organized, so that whenever somebody forwards you a new data source, you can go, oh, this fits here, and we'll evaluate it that way. So if you look at our business and you think of this in terms of a tale of two leads, if I have somebody that attends a data center webinar, two people that attend a data center webinar, that's cool, that's great, we like that. And then they click through to a white paper, that's pretty cool, we like that. And so now they both look the same. But if I start adding other, and if I send this to one of my salespeople, they'll ignore it. It doesn't mean anything to them. But if we add things in like, hey, this is a financial services account, this is an account that has an installed base of $200,000 worth of security gear, and they've gone to a data center webinar on switching, so we can do a cross-sell, and oh, by the way, they have a real estate move. Now my salespeople aren't cold calling anymore. They now have the context to go talk to the customer in a way that is very different from, hey, want to buy a switch? Yeah. So this is a very simplified version of what we're trying to accomplish. All right, so one of the things that I started to talk about a little bit ago was this notion of having your own house in order with all the different vendors that are attacking you. And so this is a framework that I've started to build to do a self-assessment of where we are. And I encourage you to do the same. I encourage you to look at this and go, Abner, you're wrong, or you should look at X, Y, and Z. But basically, for every stage of the customer engagement process, the way that I want to look at it is, do we have good data? Do we have good visibility into what the problem for us is? What is the problem that we're trying to solve at that particular point in time? Do we have who owns the problem? So one of the things that's kind of interesting is we started out with using Sales Prism to help reps target, but it also sits kind of between sales and marketing. So you get this very interesting political game of who owns it, or who should own it. And what I say is, if you pay for it, then you can claim credit for it. If you don't pay for it, then you can't claim credit for it. But this can, and especially at large companies like the one that I work in, this can create very interesting conversations. But you need to be able to know what it is that you're trying to solve for before you spin everything up. And you have to have that higher level view, because what's going to happen is whoever's in the deal flow world will go, oh, some consulting company just called me up and this sounds really great. And they offered us a free thing. All right, so how do I spend my time? Well, I spend a large chunk of my time with customers, talking to them about what it is that they need, because even though I'm a data geek, and even though I trust in data, I need to validate that. And I need to spend time trying to figure out what it is that what problems the customers are trying to solve for, so that we can figure out, do we have the right indicators? I spend, last year I did a little over 100 EVCs with our customers, plus I go racing around talking about things like SDN and VPN and lots of other TLAs. I spend a solid half of my time navigating our own systems. So one of the things that's kind of interesting in a big company is just getting your own internal data straight is a massive undertaking. For those of you who work for, say, 200-person startups in the Valley, you guys are at an awesome advantage. And if you ever need somebody to come work for you, let me know. But there are people in the Valley that are doing amazing things that us big guys can't. I spend a lot of time training people and moving the culture. The data and the math is actually not the hard part. The culture is the hard part. So let's talk about the culture and the herding of the cats. So there are three cultural challenges, opportunities that you will face, and so are three that I have faced, and you can take your cue from there. So the first one is how does sales sell? Do they sell like the team in Ocean's 11, where they go in very surgically and they have a team of people and they know what they want and they know how to get it? Or at the other end of the spectrum, do they have a call list and they call people up and they go, hey, want to buy a switch? No? Okay. Hey, want to buy a switch? No? Hey, want to buy a switch? And so if you have a group of people that are on that, hey, want to buy a switch list, can you gently move them into more of a Ocean's 11 type scenario where they go, here's an account that I'm trying to target, how do I do that? The next one is, anybody here know what HIPPO is?
Highest paid person.
Highest paid person's opinion. Okay, so the highest paid person's opinion is perfectly good. It's kind of like tribal knowledge. There's a lot of value to that experience. But there's also, what does the data tell you? So we had a conversation last night about personas and how there are people in the Valley now who have done away with personas and are looking at just pure behavior and treating people based on how they behave, not based on what title they have or how I think they might behave because they drive a minivan and have 2 kids and soccer. And so that ability to shift or at least find the right balance between the HIPPO opinion and what the data tells you culturally can be. The last one is what I call model versus model. Does anyone know what the difference between these two plastic models are? Yeah, no, that's actually really good. I'm glad no one knows. One is a 1970 Dodge Charger. The other one is a 1972 Dodge Charger. And the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter. If you don't have models, then having an argument over which model is better, or better yet, if no one's going to use your models, you don't have a mechanism to get the model to be used, then I don't care how wonderful the model is, you need to be on the playing field. And so you'll get these pet projects that pop up, and you have somebody that says, hey, we built this really awesome model. Well, great, but it's not connected to anything else that we do, and so who cares? And so you need to balance that act of how am I going to be out in the field providing this intelligence to my teams, and so it's not necessarily about the model at first. And by the way, if you are having a discussion about the quality of the models, then you've won, right? You're Amazon. Most of you, if you're anyone from Amazon here in the room? Yeah, no, of course not. Because they've built this stuff their own, and they're already winning on this front, right? And so if you're having a conversation of, hey, can we tweak the model in order to get an extra 3%, that's awesome. If you're having a conversation of how do we get the sales guys to stop calling down a list, then the model is irrelevant. All right, so what kind of results have we had? This is my all-time favorite quote. Right, it's a low bar to get over, but not looking dumb in front of the customers. Good morning. So what other kinds of results have we got? So it turns out that when a salesperson researches an account, the opportunities that they create are between 30 and 80% larger than all the other opportunities they create. So that's correlation, not causation yet. We're still pretty early. But the ability for a salesperson to go have that deeper conversation, the ability for people to go and know something about an account, to be able to make the decision to go to the right accounts, is driving our business. So with that, thank you very much, and I'm going to pass it off.